Takes more than guts to be a gangster. It takes good ideas. And I hope these ideas help you. Hey, what's up, guys? It's your mob boss, GangsterKT, and have a really important video today. Since Bifrost has came out, there is a new mini meta in this game. I'm going to call that Gear Tier 17.5. And I really want to talk about that and how we plan for it. I think it's going to be a really important dynamic of this game for probably the next 6 months to a year, before T19 comes out or who knows what else comes out. But this is a substantial upgrade and worthy of calling it its own gear tier. I really wanted to share that with you guys. So this is a little bit of a follow-up video to the one I did on Vol. That's where I first found this, and Vol is the most extreme example. We'll talk about why, but this applies to all these new characters as far as I can tell. I'm not sure about the rework. I don't have Loki to T17 to be able to check if they implemented this on reworked characters, but definitely the newly released characters, this will be the case. So let's talk about what this actually means and how we can plan for it. So Gear 17.5, again, I'm making that term up, but defining that is really just simply one piece of gear upgrading, and that is the center left piece once you're at T17 on your way to T18. So I think worth noting that piece does not take the T18 mini unique, so it's not really our current bottleneck with DD6, but it does take obviously the T16 unique, which is pretty valuable and something we really need to plan around. So if you look at the pictures here, this is an example from Photon and Miss Marvel. Again, this is that center left piece. And you can see the health increase for both of them. It lists as 100,000. For Photon, 9,000 damage. For Miss Marvel, 5,000 armor. Those are crazy numbers. And we're going to talk about how that compares to other upgrades here soon. But then if you look at the pictures below, and have talked about this before, the actual upgrades are much higher. And you only see those for a few seconds when you upgrade the piece of gear. It flashes these numbers across in a neon yellow. But if you can read that, the upgrade on Photon from just this one piece was almost 400,000 health, 25,000 damage, and 512 resistance. The one with Vol on the right there is almost 500,000 health, 25,000 damage, and almost 900 resistance. And that's partly because of Vol's passive giving extra bumps. But guys, those are, again, like meta-defining numbers. 25,000 damage on one of the best characters is game-changing. That's absolutely huge. And so something, even if we don't plan on taking them to T18 because of DD6 priorities, it's still worth trying to do this upgrade if it's a character that you're going to use. So if we look on the left here at the table, you can see some of the math breakdown. So for T17, if you added up the upgrade from all the 6 pieces plus the T17 upgrade itself, it's about an 8 to 10% increase depending on the character. So it's a little different for each character. Some of the newer characters do have a little bigger boost there than what the older ones do. But in general, it's 8 to 10%. So this T17.5 new gear tier, again, those numbers we talked about, the actual increases you get are about 25% health, 25% damage, and around 5% resistance for the example on Photon. And those stats are going to be different for each character. This piece of gear is really cool in that it upgrades the stats that are most valuable for that character. So like if you look at Magneto on this piece of gear, there's actually 5 or 6 stats it upgrades because he's kind of jack of all trades, right? Relies on everything. And again, that's why like Miss Marvel up here in the picture is showing armor for the second stat instead of damage because she's the tank. She relies on that armor. So it's the stats most important to that character. And again, it's about a 25% increase just kind of on average for what I've seen. So much, much, much more important for that one piece of gear than the whole T17 gear and upgrade itself are. Comparing it to the other T18 pieces, so if you were to just take the other 5 pieces and add them up, that gives you about a 2 to 4% upgrade on certain stats, health, damage, those things. But again, it's nowhere close to the upgrade you get from that one T17.5 piece. Lastly, would be remiss to not mention T18 is a 32% upgrade, which is obviously the best in the game, right? That is the biggest upgrade. It's what you need for DD6. So we're already planning on that. But this is an intermediate step now. And I'd say the best example for me that I'm planning here is maybe Beta Ray Bill. I don't plan on taking him into DD6, so I'm not going to use the very valuable Mystic T18s on him. But I am going to take him to T17 because of how valuable he is in Crucible right now, how valuable he is in raids. He's a character I'm using a lot. So I'm definitely going to push to get this, take him to T17.5 to get this huge additional stat increase just from the one piece of gear. So how do we plan on this a little more? First off, again, just want to really reinforce this is a critical update. 25% damage, 25% health. Those are like game changing numbers. Those will change how the battle plays out for you and your ability to punch up. If you're using a character in Crucible for top raid pushes, plan on taking them to DD6, then this has to happen. So that's obvious. But especially Arena, you don't plan on taking them to T18, but you're using them in those game modes, do this upgrade. It is so worth it. And again, just for the new characters. So how can we actually like reprioritize our resources to take advantage of this? And there's really three ways and three places you can get these. You do get them from different like raid reward orbs and just kind of daily reward stuff. So that's good. But one is the supply store. So I've for a long time not bought these T16s in the supply store. It just hasn't had the value. I have bought the T18s. As you know from some of my old videos, I never bought the T17s and think that was the right decision. But I haven't bought these, and that's changing. For instance, the Prometheum, not one that was on my radar at all, except it is needed by one of these new characters. So I've started to buy that in the supply store when I see it to make sure I have enough. The second place is the War Store. And I'll say, even if you need some of the characters in there, I think right now War Store currency should only be used on these T16s. And I basically was doing that before this even happened, this big T17.5 change, but this just reinforces it. And like, you should be buying those up in there, especially for the ones you need. But if not, and you have extra war currency, start stockpiling some. It will be needed down the road. Lastly is the Crucible store. So, I really hadn't bought these in the Crucible store either. I was really focused on T17 pieces and then started getting into the Origin pieces as well. But again, I'm definitely going to start buying the ones of these I need in that Crucible store too. Just the value of these went up so much once they introduced this T17.5 dynamic. So in general, I'd summarize this advice. If you take a character to T17, take it to T17.5. The exception may be if you're still working on your baby Apocalypse and you take up a Horseman character to T17. That might not be worth it if you aren't using them elsewhere. But in general, if they're worth taking to T17, do this extra piece on them. It's just such a huge incremental gain for that character. And I'll say the one lookout is that don't do this at the impact to your DD6 progress. So if you have a character that you'd love to do this, you're using every day. Again, Beta Ray Bill is kind of a great example of that for me. But if it takes that same T16 unique as what some of your DD6 planning characters take, then it's probably not worth it there because of the importance of DD6 and those T18 upgrades. But besides that, again, anyone you're using, you really want to prioritize this upgrade. It's so worth it. So let's take a look so far. These two teams I mentioned that have this dynamic, and again, not sure on the reworks, but what are the T16 uniques that this applies to, just so you can start planning on it. So for the Secret Defenders, Photon uses the Augmented Molecular Cloth. That's also what's used by Sylvie, as you can see in the Bifrost there. And so I put a note, high need. That's two characters on the two new teams that use this. I'll say Shang-Chi, if you also plan on taking him into DD6, he uses this molecular cloth as well. Next, Miss Marvel Hardlight uses the Augmented Prometheum. So again, that's one that wasn't on my radar at all. I do plan on taking her to DD6, so it should have been on my radar for that reason. But if not, I still would start buying it now just to be able to do that 17.5 upgrade. Same with Augmented Miasma for Robbie, and need that for him. And this may be out now. I just could not find it. But I'm not sure which one Black Cat uses, but I will definitely be prioritizing that once known. So for the Bifrost team, Vol uses the Augmented Tempered Osmium. And I'll say again, that's another one that's pretty high need, used by a lot of the really valuable characters right now. Morgan and Nova. Nova I'm planning on taking DD6 too. Beta Ray Bill uses the Augmented Uru. So again, I wasn't buying the Uru at all. I will be now. Sylvie, already mentioned, uses the Augmented Molecular Cloth. And lastly, Teen Loki uses the Augmented Arcane Magic. So if you've been able to tell and know yourself if the rework character, specifically Loki, has this huge 17.5 piece, please leave that in the comments to help everyone out and just so I can learn as well. But these are the ones we know about so far and what I am planning around. So I hope this video helped you guys today. Once I kind of got a better grasp on this, I was really excited to do a video and share this. I think this is going to be a new way to play the game a little bit around this dynamic. And with those 25% increases, it is definitely worth planning on. As always, I give you my word that this is the best advice I have. All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. Peace.